Hey, it's Rolling with Stone. I'm your host, John Stone, and we're in the mighty Stone Cave here. It is a wonderful autumn afternoon, and we are going to do some brews and reviews. The brew that we are reviewing today is the Sierra Nevada Celebration, because it is coming up to that time of year, Christmas, New Year's, all that type of stuff. Thanksgiving, the celebration. So let's pop the top on the old celebration and see where we are there. It's not twist top. I know it's not twist top. This one actually says fresh seal cap. So we got the top off of that one. We've got a handy glass, because the best way to drink a beer is in the glass. Now this is, there you go, nice little frothy head on it. Sierra Nevada Celebration. It's not a bad drop. It says fresh hop IPA. So let's see what we've got here. It says first brewed celebration in the winter of 1981. So they've been going for a while. It's almost, what is that, 40 years, 39 years this year for, for the celebration brew. Anyway, cheers. There's a good one. It's not as dark, but it is like a darker. There you go. You can get a nice view of that. The coloring there. It is darker than like a regular IPA. It has a little bit of haze to it. Not hop overridden. It has a little malty taste. Usually I buy a 6-pack of these, or maybe more, coming up to the holiday season, and that I don't mind. It's hoppier than the other one. It's not as in your face as some of those big IPAs with the hop taste. That has a bit of a little bit of malty finish to it, but it's not like that. You don't get the character. More like an IPA though. More like an IPA. It's a bit like a winter brew. Those darker brews had got together an IPA, and this was their love child. Anyway. So, cheers, and we're about to get into the. So that's the review of the beer. I usually buy at least a 6-pack, maybe even a 12-pack of these. Sometimes a case. They have them at Costco. Sometimes they have the case of these. Nice brew. If you're wanting to enjoy a nice brew while you're out in your cave, the man cave, working away on something, a project of yours. Anyway. What we're going to look at today is we're working away on our Husq there. We modified our airbox a little bit, and while we had the carburetor off and the airbox and all that stuff off, I thought, well, let's give it the Moto Tesserini treatment there. We've got the VForce 4R26 reed valve system there for the Husq KTM. There you go. You can read all about it right there. Husq KTM. And that we're going to give it a go. Unbox it. Whoa, it's unboxed, yeah. Oh, the unboxing. There we go. You got a couple of stickers, a couple of gaskets, and some reading material in case anybody actually reads things that are on paper anymore. There you go. They gave you something on paper to read. And some stickers to stick somewhere. The most important part, you get all of this massive box and packaging to get that, right? So I'm not sure how much they're spending on that box and packaging, but maybe we could be saving that and just get this bit. Anyway, so we're comparing it. So we pulled out our stock one, our stock reed cage. Now they used to the KTMs and the Huskies used to come standard with the VForce in them, right? So they used to buy the VForces for Moto Tesserini and put them in their bike standard. At some point, someone had disagreement. Maybe the price was too much. Whatever, their KTM figured they could make it better themselves, and they came up with their own. Now, if you look at this versus this, guess what? It looks pretty similar, doesn't it? And the old the old VForce 3, the old VForce 2, and the old VForce 3 never used to have these wings. These tensioners, and that are the new 4 models only. So you can imagine they had the old 3 model, so they're like, oh, let's just copy that and make it ourselves. Now, probably how they got away from the patent, because I'm sure the guy at Moto Tesserini has this patented, and that, or else every man their dog be making that one. Is they probably added these little winglets. You can probably see these little winglets at the side, and that, and not much else is different, because you can even see that, like the V in them is very, 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 very similar. That, so it's actually identical. The identical V. That these things are almost identical. The old Moto Tesserini ones used to have a bolt-in deal that these have. This has like the press fitting. These things are all press fit and snap fits now. And that, looking at the business end where the carburetor comes in, once again, they both look very, very similar in that they have the dividing wing this way, and then the dividing wing horizontal and vertical dividing wings. So yes, so they look very similar, and that I'm sure they perform very similar. The one difference, so the difference between the 4 and the old VForce is these the thing, well, that's actually a tensioner, but the reed stops, call it a reed stop. That, the old thinking was that was stopping your reed from going all the way, right? some kind of reed stop. These things are actually, and I've read the Gordon, is it the Blair, University of Belfast reports on reed cages, and if anyone is so excited or is bored on a weeknight, or has some spare time and want to catch up on some interesting reading, you can read the Blair, the Belfast University. They have many signs. They did a lot of stuff on 2-stroke engines, and they have an incredible amount of scientific papers that they published on all manner of things 2-stroke. So there were a lot of papers that were published on just the reed cage, the reeds, and the reed cage design. And and I managed to back in the day before and I was, when I first saw the VForce, I was actually typically skeptical of how they made the little V deal. I have since tried them in several of my motorcycles, and they do make a noticeable difference. Now, I think it's because their reed is not under so much stress that you're doubling the flow area. So when the reed, typically on a regular single, 2-sided reed cage, and that opens, you got to get all that fuel through each one of those sides, and the reed actually bends and twists and really distorts in unusual kind of way, and that you would never know, because actually the airflow is like a musical deal. It's like a sound wave. It's a sound wave. So the reed will shape to that sound wave, right? So this reed, because you now have 4 flowing surfaces, I don't think that reed has to open as much, and it's not under as much stress as to, and the deformation of the reed is probably not as intense as it is when you just have the 2 reeds opening, doing all the opening and closing. Anyway, so I'm imagining that's why this works. You do have a little more flow advantage. So you got flow here, flow there, flow here, flow there, and that. So the interesting part in the scientific papers is that these reed stoppers, as they used to be called, actually act as a tensioner, and by changing the curve of the reed stop, in that you can actually affect the tension that you're putting on the reed. Now, a lot of people used to put a lot of effort into getting the right. I know when I worked at FMF, we built a special thing to measure the tension that the reed actually has, because when you, doesn't matter the thickness of the reed and that, but it depends on how much resin and all that stuff goes into the matting as to how stiff the reed is. And the stiffness of the reed is what is the real important factor in your reed cage. In the reed itself is the actual stiffness of the reed. Doesn't matter the thickness, anything else, it's the stiffness of the reed. That is the critical component of the reed. So anyway, so you're looking at the reed stiffness, and anyway, so the tensioner, it allows you can run a softer, more flexible reed, and then have a tensioner on it to like tension up the tension of the reed, make it act like it's stiffer at the end, so you won't get that crazy fluttering, the reed flutter that they used to have. Big problem with at high RPM. So the bend or the curvature you have on this reed stop creates that progressive tension that you're putting on that reed. So anyway, so Moto Tesserini have come up with they've decided that this is the right curve for applying the right amount of tension to their thing. Now these guys, when you have the old style VForce and these ones, you just have a plate. Now the size of this plate actually puts tension on the reeds as well. So if you have a longer plate, you're putting more tension on the reed. If you have a shorter plate, you're putting less tension. This doesn't have a very long plate, so there's not much tension on that reed. I know at FMF we had the single stage reed, and then we had like and they were fiberglass reeds. And then we had another a piece of fiberglass cut to a different length to put a tension on that, so that they could both bend at the same time. So we'd run a lightweight at the thing, so you get the tip open, and then you had the tensioner to put a little more tension on it. They got away from having the tensioner on it that way. I know the Boysen, they used to have the dual stage reeds and that, which were really on. We have a single stage, never opened. The second stage probably never opened. And they would take the reed tensioner off, just put a plate there, or cut the reed tensioner and make it a plate, and that would allow the reed to open a little earlier. And this is way back in the day. So anyway, so I'm gonna try the VForce. The only problem with the VForce that I do find is that I don't know if you can see that or not. You probably can't see that, but the reed cage is not actually terribly flat, and it's got this protruding edge. Now I'm sure maybe they put that on so it can gouge into the big thick gasket they give you and that. But personally, I prefer these things to be flat, because it's very easy to get an air leak in your intake track. So that's if you have an air leak in your motorcycle, and most motorcycles do have some kind of air leak, and that the 90% of the air leaks will be coming from your intake track, because when you put them on, you've got to crisscross tension these things up very, very carefully, so that you get the right tension on them and you don't cause a spot and create an air leak for yourself there. This thing sits out from the intake. Now, actually, what I have a 17 model Husqvarna, and for 18 and onwards, they had a different intake for it. One that, and I thought it was straighter, but now since I've pulled the old one off and I'm looking at the new piece that I ordered, I thought they were moving the carburetor straighter, because to my way of thinking, you want to have the carburetor sitting pretty much straight up and down, because then that way you're filling the float bowl evenly on both sides. I think we still have the carburetor here. Let me grab the carburetor. Anyway, so this goes in to here. And then this will line up like that, right? Now, because you have these notches in here, the carburetor is at whatever angle that your notches line up. Now, to my way of thinking, you want to have the carburetor straight up and down, because then that way you're having an even distribution of fuel in the bowl. Now, it seems like that this, so most of them have it slightly offset, like if you really look at it, if you really, let's pull that off again. If you really, so the carburetor wants to be, I would say your carburetor should be straight, and that going in. And that seems like they set it off like this going in. And that, I don't know whether it's because everything is turning, going through the track. Anyway, but I would imagine that when you, because, water or fuel find its own level. So you'll have an uneven level. So you have more fuel on this side and less fuel on that side of your carburetor. So I would say that you want to be straight. And that seems like the newer one kicks it more that way. So you'd have much more fuel on this side, much more than less fuel on that side. So I'm not sure if I'm going to use the new intake track with my VForce and that, because I think I want to keep my carburetor straighter than instead of going like that. I also have the Yamaha. I have a Yamaha one here to compare it with. Now the Yamaha one, man, let's push. They all fit the same size carburetor. There you go, the Yamaha one. And how is that Yamaha one looking? That looks kind of straighter to my way of thinking. So I think the Yamaha one is very similar. Now the Yamaha are using old technology because they're from 2006, remember? But I think the Yamaha one is very, very similar to the new, that's almost identical to the 17 KTM Husq. The new one. Now, I did notice that when I did go test ride these things, I did think that the 18 ran a lot better than that one is definitely kicked off to the side a lot more. Anyway, so we'll see about the intake track. So I'm going to do a little more research on that. We have the carburetor. We got all that cleaned up and put back together. You can look at our other YouTube video with the different tips and modifications we did inside the carburetor to the little bolt here. We put the holes in there, and we put the holes in the plastic piece so that it could get more fuel to the main jet area, and we would have less fuel starvation issues there. So check that. You can give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, leave a comment in the comment below. Hit the holidays, celebrate. Hey, cheers. I'm John Stone, and this is the Stone Cave, and you are rolling with Stone.